Hello, Ken. How are you this fine evening?
Oh, Dan, I don't think I could be any better now that I'm here with you.
Oh, thank you. So, what I want you to do tonight, Ken, is change your mind. What is this all about?
I'm on it. So this is a story that really hit me because it made me realize that our minds can be changed in a moment's notice. I was listening to a conversion story, and conversion, as you and I have talked about, is simply shifting from one position to another. This one happens to be religious in orientation, and people who are listening can listen from that perspective, or you could listen from a broader perspective of just a change happening when there was an inciting incident. There was something that happened. This is a story of a guy who had no affiliation with the church whatsoever, gets home from a party one night, happens to be Christmas Eve, he kicks on the TV to relax before bed and sees a midnight mass being broadcast. And he's taken by it. He's just taken by it. And to quote him, he felt like it was like the truest thing he had ever seen. So the next day he ends up going to that church in his hometown for Christmas Day services, for Christmas Day Mass. And something just stuck within him. And he went from non-church, non-believer to believer to ordained priest to coming back and actually being the vicar of that church that he originally had seen. And it got me thinking, Dan, about what is it in those moments that if we pay attention, that little inciting moment in time, what is it that we could become? What's out there for us? And I thought, he could have just turned the TV off. He could have walked away from it. He could have chalked it up to, I had too many pints and, I was all sentimental and not thought another thing of it. But he paid attention. He paid attention to that moment in time. And then he had the courage of his convictions to just follow through with what his gut told him was something that was true. And so I've heard this kind of a story before in secular settings too. Somebody comes into work and they see something in one of the trade journals and it catches them and they follow up with it, and suddenly they have a new job or a new profession. There's a complete shift, a change away from something that they thought they might be doing from the rest of their lives, or for the rest of their lives, they might be retiring from that company. And instead, it turns out that there's a whole different path out there. So tonight's conversation is about change. Tonight's conversation is about listening to those little moments that can actually result in huge, massive change for our lives.
So, the real question is, how long does it take to make a change? And I seem to always quote Tony Robbins because that's kind of my early mentor, but he says it takes an instant, right? And when you think about that, it does really take an instant to make a shift, a change from the direction you're going, whatever road you're on. You can simply shift, change directions, and go on a whole new road, a whole new course. And if you extend that out far enough, you'll end at a completely different destination. At first, it doesn't seem like much has changed at all. It seems like you're very close to where you started. But if you keep going, right, you've even a 1 degree shift has a great difference in the destination if you extend it far enough down the road, to use that metaphor. But I think the reason most people don't change, and that's probably the most common rebuttal I would get from people, I would say that they'll say to me, why do you spend so much time on people that seem to be lost causes, or people that seem to, be the definition of insanity? They keep doing the same thing over and over. But somehow I have faith that's like, no, this time it's going to be different. This time they really mean it when they say they're going to change or stop doing that thing or start doing something new. Because I really hold on to that belief that unless it is mentally or physically impossible, and there's very rare things that are mentally or physically impossible, right? That anything is possible. So therefore, if somebody says, I want to do that, the moment that new destination they want to go to, do that thing or be that thing, it has to start with that change of mind, right? It has to start with that shift of belief to go, I want that. Well, currently the road you're on won't get you there. So you have to change or shift something. And that immediate shift, just like the word immediate, like that shift or that change of mind can happen in an instant. And so I think that people start with this belief that, you know what, nothing ever changes. People can't change. And that is their limiting factor. The reason people don't is because they don't believe it's even possible. So I'd say my number one thing is, if you are even trying to make a change in your life, you have to start first with an open mind. And if you start with an open mind, then you open up the possibility for a shift or a change of your own mind. And then you have to believe, okay, I'm open-minded to this. And then just look for and find examples of people who have made a shift or changed their mind, and look at what they achieved, look what they accomplished, look at the difference in their lives because they were open to it and they accepted whatever inspiration gave them that change. So first, start with an open mind and know that it is possible to change your mind.
So it feels almost like a parallel track that we're talking about, and I think I want to just like follow this along because I think they're both really essential. I agree with what you're talking about in terms of having the openness to know that change is possible, and I think there's also those moments, and that's why these two seem that they can be parallel, but they can also merge. There are those moments when one is not even contemplating change and something hits, that thing that you saw on TV, something a friend said, an ad that you saw, another person's comment, a fleeting thought in your mind, and something gets triggered. It's almost like there was some kindling in there and a spark hit and it caught fire. And you paid attention to it. And where I see the two of them uniting, Dan, is that if you don't have an openness to change, when that moment comes, even if it's unanticipated, even if you're not thinking constantly like change is possible, change is something that is good, it's how we grow and evolve and expand, even if you're not actively thinking that, if you are at least open to it, so when the moment comes, you're prepared for it and you can take advantage of it, then when that spark hits you, you won't have to go through the process of change isn't going to happen, people can't change, nothing like that is even possible for me. It may be a completely different way that you're going, like a total departure from where you're at. And I think for me, the thing is, be open to the moment, be open to the spark, just be open to the fact that inspiration can hit in the most unlikely of places at the most unlikely of times. Like, I think about my dad. I've talked about him before. He's coming up on 96 years old, in great health, thank God, body, mind, and spirit. At his age, he still has the capacity to be amazed. He still has the capacity to be surprised. He still has the capacity to learn and grow and know that there's more out there. And I think about, like, what would happen if instead of us being in like the dailiness of it all, just the grind of it all, where life can just become, man, mundane. And I think that's what locks us into like, change can't happen. How could this possibly change? I'm just on this path. You know, I'm going to mark time till I retire and or die. And that's it. I think if we maintain that capacity to be amazed, if we maintain that capacity to be surprised, if we maintain that capacity to know that something could really shift us in an unexpected way that could be for our betterment, then we're open. And when that spark comes, we don't dismiss it as impossible, or maybe even worse yet, not even recognize it for what it is.
So get lucky. And my favorite definition of luck is when preparation meets opportunity. So I think that's where, similar to what you're saying, where I think these are parallel tracks or they merge, is that the openness can lead you to be open to like magic or miracles or inspiration or something that can change almost on your behalf. So it doesn't always have to be something that you take a conscious decision to change, right? But you're saying it's like, but if you're open to be led by whatever you believe it is leading you, whether that's God, whether that's the universe, or whether that's just energy flowing around, but something can, like you said, can spark inside of you an inspiration, an idea, and that can lead to a change. Sometimes though, the change can like just kick your butt, can kick you off track, right? Like you're going and everything's just going smoothly, and then boom, you get derailed by something. It could be an accident, it could be whatever, but that just shifts the entire direction of your life. Let's say the company you work for goes under, and now you're like, what the heck? I planned on being here forever. I've been here a long time. And that causes a shift or a change. And I think the cool part is if you remain in this openness, this mindset of I kind of go with the flow, and or the more active way that I look at it, like I'll find a way, I'll make a way, I'll figure it out, then you don't have to be afraid of change, right? So if you're just laid back about it and something kicks you off track, life gets in the way of your plans, you can kind of like, that's what was meant to be. That was God's will. I go with the flow. I make the most of my situation. Or if you're a little more like, like this active personality and you're like, you know what? I'm not going to let it get me down. I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to find a way to push through. I'm going to make the most out of it, like the more active approach. But either way, I think the difference, what I'm trying to stress here is that most people, I think, don't think change is possible. And number two, they fear change, right? Because change takes you out of comfort. Change takes you away from something that is the known. You've most likely reached a pattern, an unconscious competence where it's like, this is my normal. Nobody better mess with my normal. My normal is comfortable. I can do it without thinking. It's automatic. So when something knocks you off track, or when someone proposes something different, whether like an active choice to make a change or just life forcing a change, we tend to fear that and we tend to get worried about it and we tend to dramatize it, right? So go back to that thing. It's like, how long does it take to make a change? An active change, an instant. We have to believe that's possible to make that change in the instant, but we fear like that's uncomfortable. So I don't even want to think about that. I don't even want to go there. And then when it happens, it kicks you off track. The more passive, like life happened and got in the way, we fear like, oh no, what if I never figured out? What if I never get back to what I was doing before? So the approach is first, inevitably, like this perspective that I like to say, this knowledge of how life actually works, let us provide you some, which is life is never a constant. You're never just going to ride this straight line path, this straight road. So be open and be prepared for change. And just ask yourself that question. Am I going to just go with the flow and kind of passive and just accept for what it is? Inshallah, whatever God wills for my life? Or is it this other side where I'm going, you know what? Life, I'm ready for you. Throw it at me and I'm going to find a way. I'm going to make a way. I'm going to figure it out. But change is inevitable and I'm ready for it.
So here's the irony. Life's changing anyway. This whole notion of like, I don't want to accept change. I can't change. Change won't happen. I want to stay the path I'm on. It is actually utterly, completely, and totally false. You and I are different people than we were 15 minutes ago when we started this conversation. We have changed. We've listened to each other speak. We've been processing and thinking about things. We're 15 minutes older. We've changed. Change is already happening. It is a constant. It is in process. It's in play. There's no avoiding it. Ultimately, we go through that final change, that final transition when we take our last breath. That's it. It's done. But the point is that for some people, and this is just, it triggered this thought when you were talking, for people to think, I don't want to change or I can't change, I'm just going to stay the course. You can't. If you're still taking a breath, you're changing. Your cells are changing. Everything about you is changing and shifting, perhaps in very tiny ways over the next couple of minutes in time, but it's changing. Change is happening constantly. And so I think to just embrace the fact that we are dynamic beings, we're not static beings, that change is always going on might help open people's mind to the fact that, well, if I'm already in a state of change, What else is possible? Could I, like you said, direct that change more actively? Could I be more open to the things that are going on around me? Can I listen more attentively, whether it's internally listening or whether it's externally paying attention to things that are going on in your business, in the world around you, with your family, with your friends? Could I pay attention to signs and signals? Could I just open my mind to know that all things are possible? I can go anywhere I want. I can do anything I want. I can go for this beautiful ride however I want to describe it. I literally am the co-creator of my life. And I think if you start from that space, that openness to receive, and the knowledge that change is already happening and it won't stop. You cannot maintain the status quo. There's literally no such thing as it. Your wife or husband or partner, if you have one, is changing. Your kids are changing. All that is happening around you every moment of every day. So change already is. It's a state of being right now. There's nothing you can do to alter that. The question is, to what degree are you going to embrace it?
And everything is either growing or it's dying, and pretty much both at the same time, because we're all leading towards death. But I agree with what you're saying. It's really just a choice. And we have to ask ourselves that choice of if we're okay not attempting to grow, and grow just means like improve, I'll say, or be better at whatever we're doing. And if we don't want to actively pursue growth or improvement or be better, then just the act of trying to stay still means we're moving in the opposite direction, because as the world changes around us, we're essentially dying, right? So the attempt to keep the status quo or keep things as they are and not actively try to grow and improve means we're actually moving backwards and not as good. And I started this in the last statement I made, which is I said, get lucky. But I was going back to the point of many people look at a shift or a change that somebody makes in their life and thinks they're so lucky. But what I was trying to stress is that luck is when preparation meets opportunity. So if you're prepared, if you're even open to change, if you embrace, as Ken says, you embrace the fact that life is full of change, then when an opportunity comes up, right, that you can make an active choice to move in a different direction, change your mind and go there. People are going to call you lucky, but you were prepared for an opportunity that you can make an active choice or a shift, right? Or if you just were open and embrace the fact that life, it's going to kick my butt sometimes, it's going to throw me off course, things are going to happen, but I'm ready for it. Then when you embrace this maybe unpurposeful change, and then somebody sees you in a whole new career or with some whole new success or in a new relationship, whatever it is, they're going to be like, wow, that person's so lucky. But again, luck is just when you're prepared for an opportunity and you seize the opportunity. So I just say simply, embrace change, accept that it's inevitable, and be ready for an opportunity that you can make an active choice, and be ready for life to surprise you and take advantage of the surprise. Maybe it leads you. I like the job example. Maybe if you're in a career or in a company in a career and that company were to shut down or lay you off for whatever reason, you go, great. Because now maybe there was a thing lingering in your mind. Maybe it's that little spark we talked about earlier that you go, you know what I've always wanted to do? But you say, why would I pursue that? Because I have this comfort of this job. And maybe when that happens, you go, you know what? I'm going to pursue that. Right now, that's what I'm going to do versus just try to go back to finding a way to get back what I had before. Maybe you embrace the change and go for something entirely new. And fast forward down the line, you could be in a whole new destination.
There were a couple great readings. I've mentioned the Stoic philosophy, the daily Stoic. It's like we're reading it each day on Stoic philosophy. And a couple of them this past week stood out for me. One of them was about, I can work from here. Whatever state you find yourself in, I can work from here. And they used extreme examples. You're in a prison cell. I can work from here. You're in a beautiful palace. I can work from here. Doesn't shift what you've got. It doesn't shift your rational mind. It doesn't shift your ability to think and to consider things. I can work from here. The other one was, I can work with that. Whatever you happen to have at the time, whatever skill set is there, whatever you've got, I can work with that. And I think about that as it relates to the openness to change. And particularly sometimes when those changes bring what would previously be considered unwanted things. Like you said earlier, Dan, maybe it's an accident. Maybe it's a sudden shift in that, your company goes out of business, something like that. But can we keep coming back to, in the midst of change, I can work with that. I can work from here. Doesn't matter where I'm at. Doesn't matter what I've got. I can still do this. And I think, to your earlier point about that fear of change, we like sometimes where we're at. We have a nice home. We have nice things. We have money in the bank. We've got food in our bellies. Those are all great and wonderful things. What if one of those were to shift? And if we could default to, I can work with that, I can work from here, then I think we can embrace that change in such a way that we can then move through it into whatever is next. I've never experienced change without some pain. I've never experienced change without some challenge, without some difficulty, without some form of a struggle. And yet it's in that I've been able to strengthen myself and to move into positions that are ultimately to my benefit. And had I resisted that, man, I don't know where I'd be. I embraced it. I embraced at times the pain. I embraced the struggle. I embraced the unknowing and just trusted that the change that was occurring was something that was going to benefit me, even if I couldn't see what the outcome was going to be. And I think that's where we convert fear into trust. And that to me is amazing. I was listening to the British diver, Tom Daly, just won gold medal in Japan with his partner, his doubles partner there, Maddie Lee, and they were talking about a conversation that they had with previous champion Greg Louganis, and he said something to the effect of, "Fear is just excitement without breathing," and if you just take a breath, then this fear that we have all of a sudden is like, man, this could be the best thing. This change could actually be extraordinary. It could be the most exciting thing that's ever happened to me. But when we stop breathing, fear takes over, and there's no movement then. That's when possibility is shut out, and that's when our darker angels take over. We have an opportunity just to breathe through it, and in so doing, to embrace change and to follow it through to a new beginning that we may have no idea of what it's going to be, where it's going to lead, but it doesn't matter. Can we just breathe? Can we go with it? Can we enjoy the process as we're moving through it?